Welcome to the Live Big podcast, where real estate expert Nick Paynes shows you that everyone can build wealth through real estate investing. Nick and his featured guests will give you the tools, resources, and expert information you need to leverage real estate into a wealth-building strategy, so you can stop worrying about your 9-to-5 and start to live big. Here's Nick with today's episode.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 3 of the Live Big podcast. I'm your host, Nick Paynes, and today we are going to be talking about one of the most important things about really being successful in life, finding your why and goal setting. So I'm really excited to introduce my guest for today, Yamel Ramirez Maynard. She is a senior real estate coach for Workman Success Systems. She's a highly accomplished real estate agent in Los Angeles. She is one of the top producing real estate agents in the nation. And she's also a former sales manager for Keller Williams, had over 200 agents in her office, was able to grow her office twofold. I think you started with around 100 agents. Is that correct, Yamel?
Yeah, so, it's a lot of recruiting.
So lots of recruiting. The only way that you can be a sales manager with that type of recruiting is to be a phenomenal coach, mentor, teacher, trainer, because beginning agents rely on that. So she has a phenomenal background, great history, and I couldn't think of a better guest to start us off and talk about our big why and our goals and our goal setting. So Yamel, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that introduction.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start today, and Yamel, you're more the expert, so I'd love you to give just your feedback and your opinions on a lot of these things. But the big thing I want to start with is your big why. So many of us don't even know about it, but I know for me it was a game changer. It was a life changer for me, figuring out kind of my big why. So could you speak to a little bit about that and what it is, and go from there.
Absolutely. I think, whenever you are thinking about goals and, in general, we're going to talk, of course, about goal setting. I know we discussed that, but the why is what's the purpose of this? And one of the big ahas that I received, I learn a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I believe that earners are learners. Is this one line really stuck with me, is that your big why should really move you, almost to a point of tears in a way, where when you think of it, it drives you into action, right? And so, developing a big why usually takes a minute. Like you said, a lot of people don't know. Personally, I don't have any kids. A lot of times the big why, people's big why, are their kids or their families. And so, over years of being in the real estate business, I had to really kind of figure out what it was. Personally, for me, I just believe in one simple concept, and it's actually from Zig Ziglar. It's on my Facebook page. It's everywhere. And it says, you can have everything in life that you want if you just help enough people get what they want. And so that one quote resonates with me personally, because people will often ask, why do you step out of your real estate business to coach, or why do you step out of your real estate business to train and, do things of that nature? But it's a really interesting thing that you almost feel energized by helping others. And so that's what really drives and moves me. I love seeing people move from A to B to B to C and, accomplish their goals. And I love learning. So that's my why, is really just to help others, because I know I'm going to get something in return by doing so.
That's awesome. And I think, for me, when I was figuring out, I remember when I figured out my why. I went to a seminar. It was like an all-day thing, and it was teaching you kind of the things that we learn about and think about every day. It was goal setting, and it was just for small businesses, and the idea was you would ask somebody, hey, why do you go to work every day? And somebody would be like, to make a paycheck. And, well, why do you need to make a paycheck? Well, I have bills to pay. Okay, well, why do you have to pay your bills? And the idea was that you would keep diving deeper and deeper. You would say, you just keep asking why until you got to a point where the ultimate answer lies, right? And so like the ultimate answer would lie somewhere where there was no more why. It was just like, because that's what it is. And it was amazing to me because I never knew personally like what my why was until I went down this path. And once I discovered that, and I was well into my 30s when I figured this out. So I think it's so important for people, like especially young people, if they can figure this out much earlier.
Right.
Man, what an incredibly powerful thing to have in your life, driving factor, motivating factor, and not only something, but can help you explain the decisions that you make in life. For me,
and really and like you said, motivate you. I mean, there's going to be times when you don't want to do the task at hand, whatever it is. And when you just automatically think about that why, it just drives you. Okay, right. You know what? Whether it be your kids, your family, an aging parent, whatever it is for you, it just automatically is almost like a light bulb in your head that puts you into action and gets you out of that funk of, oh man, I don't really want to make, 100 phone calls today or, do X, Y, or Z, go to the gym, right?
Sure.
Any of that stuff.
Yeah. And I think,
totally agree.
The piece, it's so funny because it will also help you answer some questions in your life. I know for me, it was like, I didn't understand why I had done some things in my past that I had done, good or bad. And and now I look back and I go, that's why I had that mentality. That's why I had that, that's why I had that either that drive or that hesitation for whatever it is that I was doing at the time, because I didn't know it, but deep down inside, it's because it didn't necessarily align with my why, or it completely aligned with my why, and that was the drive. So I think it's important. And the other thing I want to mention is that, again, talking about like, how do you figure out what your why is? I think it's important to know and to understand that this isn't something that you're going to sit down and just like figure out like in the next 5 minutes. You're not going to turn off this podcast and be like, oh yeah, my why is this. It will take you some time. You have to self-reflect. You have to think about yourself and your life and your job and your family and what your end goal is. Like what is
Absolutely.
it? Like you said, for you, it's just the enjoyment of helping people and seeing other people succeed, I
think, some of the action items that I could suggest and what's helped other people is to, how do you find your why? It's really in those moments of silence, right? I mean, so much of the world is, coming at us, whether it be journaling or, even sometimes on vacation where you just have that moment to really think without some external distractions is where you're going to, like you said, self-reflect and really, really think about what it is and ask yourself, why. People don't often know why am I doing this? Why am I in this profession? Why do I want to buy, 100 properties or whatever there's reasons for it. But until you have those moments of silence, which of course leads to clarity, you're never really going to, find that answer. So that's what's helped, personally myself, journaling and other people that I've coached throughout the years. It's just those moments of silence.
I think that's so important to understand too, is that, what you said there is like, why do I want to own 100 properties, or why do I want to, whatever it is. Well, but the reality is no one wants to be a landlord for 100 properties. I've never met somebody that's like, oh yeah, I want to deal with 100 tenants on a day-to-day basis, right? Or like, I want to go to work and clock in and clock out every day. Nobody wants to do that, but we do it because there's a bigger why behind that. And that's what's so important is like, the people look at, investment real estate, for example, and they may go, oh yeah, that's great. Who wouldn't want to own 10 houses? Who wouldn't want to own 100 houses? Who wouldn't want to own an apartment complex? Well, tons of people, because they look and they see the superficial layer of what it takes to do that. But what they don't understand is potentially what that will turn into, and does that drive you towards your ultimate why? Maybe your why is that you want to travel the world, right? And that traveling the world will allow you to meet other people and understand different cultures and experience something that is beyond what you've ever been able to experience in life. Well, that takes effort, that takes money, that takes, so we do things for a bigger why. You want your kids to not ever be without. You want your kids to be able to go to a good college, right? You don't go to work every day to make a paycheck. You go to work every day so that you can fund your kids' college account, so that they can get a great education, so that they can get a great job, so that they can take care of their kids. Like, it goes down this huge waterfall. Right. And so, anyway,
almost like what legacy do you want to leave, right? That's what comes to mind with everything that you're saying. The why should answer that. What's your legacy?
Exactly.
To a point, right?
100%.
And how many times do we read, Nick, that people work and work and work, to their 76, and then they have 5 or 6 years or 10 years of retirement. I mean, imagine the opportunity to retire in your 50s and really enjoy life. So yeah, again, it's just asking yourself these questions to really, like you said, self-reflect and dig deep as to what's the purpose of all of this. That's the why. It's what's the purpose? What's your legacy, and why?
Absolutely.
Only you know.
Well, Yamel, let's talk about a little bit about goals, because obviously once we know our why, we have to have goals to get to that point. And, I read some interesting statistics, and just in case I forget to mention it later in the podcast, I got a lot of these statistics from a website called goalscalling.com. It's a blog, and there's great information, and all of these things that I'm about to talk about are sourced through there. So if anybody wants to question the sources, go to the website, check it out. So in case I forget to mention that later, but one of the first things that
I'm going to check it out right after this call.
It is. It's a great little website. So anyway, one of the things in there was that Brian Tracy, who we all know is an incredible sales trainer, has written some incredible books. One of my favorites is Eat That Frog. And he states that 80% of people don't set goals at all. So 4 out of 5 people don't even set goals. And out of the 20% of people that do, 3% write them down. So 3% write their goals down. And less than 1% review their goals daily or rewrite them if needed. Why do you think that is?
Wow.
Why do you think so?
Isn't that people listening to that? Wow.
Because one of the things that I think of is, there's an old adage that 80% of the people do 20% of the work and vice versa, right? 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And this lines up with that really well, right? Why do 80% or why do 20% of the people do 80% of production, right? Well, it's because they got goals. It's because they have goals. It's because they're driven. They're motivated. They have a why. They've written down what they want to achieve, right? But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Why do you think it is that so many people are not goal oriented?
I think that in general, it just really depends what profession you're coming from. But in general, we're just not really taught this. It's not ingrained in some of us. And obviously that's not an excuse. Personally, I am not only a coach, I enjoy being coached myself. And so when you have someone guiding you that's been, in positions that you've already been in or can help you self-realize, it really opens your eyes. But that's me. I can only speak for me that I enjoy setting goals and I enjoy crushing them. But that's also something learned. It's a learned behavior. It's not something that just, my parents even taught me. And so I don't know, it could be a number of different reasons why people don't look at their goals. It could be fear. It could be, fear of success, fear of, multiple different things. But I just think it's a habit that we all need to adopt personally, because you set these goals and a lot of people do them in the beginning of the year, in January. And I know in real estate, we like to start a little earlier in October and set those goals. And, when do you look at them? It's a sad thing to me to honestly take the time to set them and not look at them. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of fear in that actually, why people don't. Or maybe just, I set them and I'll look at them next year and see.
Right.
I don't know. There's
what, for so many people, like I spent a lot of my life, I've always been a motivated person, but I spent a lot of my life thinking Like, oh, I didn't mean to write my goals down there. They're up here. Like, I know what they are. But there's something that happens, and there's this, like, what is the psychology? What's the psychological process that happens when you write down your goals and when you look at those goals every day? Like how does that change versus someone who maybe like me is like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, I have a great memory, and I think about those things every day. And I could argue that earlier in my life that I did think about those goals a lot, not daily, not when I woke up, not when I went to bed, right, not multiple times a day, not, in my pocket. Some people laminate their goals, they put them in their pocket. Some people wear them on their wrists, right? Mm-hmm. So, those are like, what is the psychological process behind that when you write down your goals? How does that affect you when you look at those things every day?
I'm sure you've read this too. I mean, there's power in writing something down. It's almost like it connects to your brain, right? And people don't understand, I won't say understand, but people don't realize that sometimes the mind is such a powerful thing. At least we don't give it enough credit. I don't want to say it that way, but we don't give it that the mind is very powerful. And when you go through that activity of actually writing it down, what is it saying in your brain? Self-talk is a very important thing. What you say to yourself matters. I read somewhere, you talk to yourself the most. What are you saying? And if you imagine starting your day with, here are my goals in your brain, and you're talking to yourself through it, it does something to your psyche. It does something to the actions that you do. It's also measurable. Oftentimes, goals could be anything, right? They could be as simple as fitness, they could be personal, they could be anything. But the pure act of looking at them and having them in your brain, it almost is like okay, that's my goal. What can I do today to move the needle and achieve that today? Is so powerful. I've seen it in several coaching clients. One of the tools that we use is it's called the strategic plan, where you set your 6-month goals, a year goal, 2-year goals in both business and life. And the goal, honestly, we should look at that more. I'm guilty of that. And we look at that, the system is once a quarter, and check in on those. But it's so much more powerful to look at them daily, like you said, because, imagine a vision board, something on your phone. There's power in that. You're feeding yourself with this positivity in your day and setting yourself off for the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we tell people, like, write your goals on your mirror, take an expo marker and write them on your mirror, print them out and paste them up on your mirror. Do something where you see them every day. And I remember one of the things, like, I shouldn't say before I started writing goals down, but a goal that wasn't, and now looking back, we're about to talk about how to set goals. But one of the goals that I had was not probably a good goal, or what we're about to talk about is a SMART goal. But I remember going to bed every single night and waking up every single morning thinking about that goal every single day. And for me, it was such an arbitrary goal, but it was, I just want to be a millionaire, right? It was like, I want to be a millionaire. What's it like? And I go to bed every single night being like, when I'm a millionaire, like, wake up every single morning, like, I want to be a millionaire. But that mentality drove me every day to work hard. And so when people would ask, I get people ask all the time, and I'm not as bad as I once was, but I get people asking all the time, like, why do you work so much? Like, why do you spend so much time working? Well, A, I enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. But B, like, because my bigger why, I'm like, man, if I can knock out 5-10 years of really hard work so that I don't have to work for the rest of my life, that's worth it to me, because that aligns with my big why. Right. And so,
and there's a sense of satisfaction too, right? When you're able to cross that goal off. That's what personally works for me too. And I'm sure you can relate. It's just, yes, that one's done. That's a measurable cross off goal. Check. Let me move on to the next one.
Totally. And there's tons of research behind even just why you should make a daily list of to-dos, right? You should come into work every day and you should write down the 5, 10, 15 things that you need to do. It takes you 5 minutes in the morning to do that, 10 minutes in the morning to do that. But what it does is 2 things. One, it guides you throughout your day, right? You don't sit around thinking like, so many people in their jobs probably spend 15, 20, 30 minutes a day cumulatively thinking, what do I need to do next? Like, what's next? I just finished that. Great job. pat on the back for finishing this task, but what's next? If you've got that list that you started at the beginning of the day, you can look down and immediately get working on the next thing. But there's so much science behind the fact that when you physically take your pen and cross something off of your to-do list, it releases dopamine, and it's something that makes us we feel good. We feel energized. This is a scientific biological process that motivates us as human beings to accomplish something, right? So think about when it's not just like a do laundry task. Think about crossing off, make $500,000 in 2023. Like, imagine the amount of dopamine that releases, right? It's not just like, I'm getting chills sitting here just talking about it, right? Like just thinking about crossing off, like just sitting there crossing off like these huge goals, not to complete laundry for the day, not to vacuum the house, but like imagine building that up. A little bit of dopamine every single day to motivate yourself to accomplish some tasks. And one of my favorite quotes, and I probably misquote this a little bit, but one of my favorite quotes is from Will Smith. And he talks about the fact that you don't build a wall in one day. You take a brick every single day and you lay that brick as perfectly as that brick can possibly be laid. And you do that every single day. And after a year, 2 years, or however, you have a perfect wall that's built, right? And so the idea is not to focus on the year or the 10-year or the big why, for example. It's what's in the back of your mind, but it's not really going to be a goal that's written down. Those are going to be little goals that get you to that big why. So the biological process and the psychological process that happens when you write your goals down versus just thinking about them in your brain every day, it's a totally different feel. It's a totally different thing. So I think it's so important.
I agree. And then, take it a level up too, right? Some people are a little visual. Personally, I have my vision board as my screensaver on my computer. This is just something, every time you're logging in, what are you looking at, right? For me, it's I'm really driven by not working, being on vacation. What's my next vacation? Europe, what's next in Europe and what's next in, Australia or whatever. And so, and then to cooperate what you're saying too, that's so powerful in writing down those tasks or priorities. And then how are those tasks and priorities aligned with that bigger goal, right? Are they moving the needle at all? Exactly. One of the things that I appreciate about the coaching program with Workman is they have something called one more thing. And we start tracking, your daily behaviors. One more thing. What one more thing can you do today to really move that needle to get to your goal, right? And that's something that sits with me I got to say every day at 4:00. All right, what's that one more thing I can do today? What's that podcast or anything I can listen to help me get closer to my goal?
Totally.
And that's of course each.
Absolutely. One more thing, one more time, right? Like I love it. And when my agents ask about it, I'm like, and they're like, what does that mean? What is 1MT, 1MT? I'm like, it's one more thing, one more time. And that just means when you think your day is done, when you're packing up for the day, what's that one last thing that you can do to add to the production of your day? And, a lot of times for me, like you said, it could be a podcast. Like it's on my drive home. I'm driving home for the day. I'm done working, but can I spend that 20 minutes being productive? Can I spend that 20 minutes listening to a podcast that's going to add to the value of my life, right? Whether it be business.
Like this one,
right? That's right. So hopefully somebody is listening to this podcast right now on their drive home. And I have to applaud you for that, because if you're doing that, it means you're doing one more thing, one more time. And that is incredibly important. You do that every single day for 365 days a year for the next 10 years. You'd be amazed at what the results will bring. So
learners are learners.
That's right.
We hear that. Keep learning.
That's
and,
right.
How do you adjust these goals as you cross one off, write two more and
That's right.
Keep growing yourself. To be complacent, it's that quote, right? To be complacent is almost the death of us. And so you want to keep growing. The mind wants to be fed, goals. They want to be fed, some sort of looking for some challenges. So give it to the brain. We have to feed that part of ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's move into, I want to talk about briefly, I don't think we have to spend a ton of time on this, but I want to talk about SMART goals. Okay. The acronym SMART, and what is a SMART goal, why it's important. Because you just mentioned resolutions, right? Like the beginning of January, we create these resolutions, right? So, we're a couple months past that, and so many people have fallen off their resolutions by now, right? And so, and as we look at resolutions and we talk about SMART goals, I want, the listeners to look back and go, let me think about my resolutions. Were those SMART goals? Because the reality is they probably were not. And that's why so many of them fail, right? Another statistic is that only 8% of only 8% of resolutions are met, right?
Wow.
And 62% of people give up on their resolutions within a month. Right? Like that's just crazy to me, right? Like 8% of resolutions are met. And remember that like a goal, like New Year's resolution is just a fancy it's a fancy way of saying goal. It's just a goal, right? So just something that we resolve to do. That's what a goal is. So Jamel, tell us.
It's what we've been taught though, right? I mean, and that just goes back to just, things that are ingrained in us. And, how do we change that? And I think you're going to get into this in a little bit more detail, but it's, we should change that resolutions and say, goal setting, right? Yeah. Let's change those, right? Take the word out resolution and say, let's set some goals, some achievable goals, right?
Yeah, especially because I think there's a stigma that resolutions fail, right? Like, and obviously, if only 8% are met, like if there's a metric out there that's like, less than 10% of people achieve their resolutions, like, let's just get rid of the word altogether. Let's like get rid of this stigma that this is the way things are, this stereotype, right?
I would sign that petition. I'm first one on the list.
Absolutely. So, well, cool. Well, if you would, Jamel, talk about, first of all, explain what a SMART goal is, if you can define the acronym for us, and why it's important for those goals to be, for your goals, every goal you set to be a SMART goal.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great little acronym. It's so easy to remember. And we use it in coaching all the time. And when anybody comes to me and says, oh, I have a goal, 9 times out of 10, I'm tweaking it just a little bit because they're missing the M or the R or the T, in it. So, specific. S stands for specific. B is clear as day. It's almost like you have to see it in your mind already. I think you said that earlier, and that's so true. Like, whether it be a vacation or whatever it is for you, do you see yourself on a specific day in that location, right? It's almost that. And sports, I think you can use sports a lot too. They use a lot of that. And what they do is they see the specific, the way that the ball moves or anything. It's so detailed and clear. Measurable. M stands for measurable. Can it be tracked? We love that question in our coaching program is, can it be tracked? Specifically if you have goals to, own a certain amount of properties, right? What are the steps that you need to do, the measurable steps that you need to do to get there, right? Actionable. What can you do today? As we just talked about that one more thing, one more time. What do you need to learn? What steps do you need to take to move that forward in an actionable way? Are they realistic? That's a big one, don't you think? A lot of people get really overwhelmed by this goal, right? I want to have $100 million portfolio or whatever it is, but is that realistic in your first year of investing, or is that realistic in year one, right? So make it realistic, and then put a time stamp on it, a time bound, I think is the last one, and T. You almost have to write it out. We go back to writing it. I want to achieve this goal by 12/31/2023. You have to put that time stamp on it, or 6/1/2023, whatever it is for you. That way, when you look at it every day, have you move the needle to meet that timeline for yourself?
Yeah. And I think that the biggest, I think people miss the S, the M, and the T mostly, right? Like, so the R being realistic or relevant, right? Like usually it is, right? If we have a goal, it's relevant to what we're looking for, and it's generally realistic. Now, there are people that like to goal set in a different way. They like to set like an absolute, I'm not this way. And some people like it. They like to put a big carrot out there and they go, you know what? I'm going to acquire $10 million worth of real estate this year. And if they were only to do half of that, 5 million, that would be great, right? I'm not like that because I see that as so far away and I see it as unrealistic. And being a realist, I'm not really an optimist. I'm not really a pessimist, but I am a realist. And I see $10 million worth of real estate, acquisition of real estate, and I go, that's just not possible, right? So I like the real goal. I like the realistic goal, but most people are missing specific, measurable, or time-based, right? So I hear people all the time, they go, I want to acquire more property. There's so much wrong with that goal. Like, that's a great goal, like in your mind. Like, I want to, like, I would be like, applaud you for saying, oh, I want to buy investment real estate. I want to build my wealth. That's great, but there's so much wrong with that goal. It's not specific, right?
More is never. I hear that so much. What is more, right. But a lot of people say more, and it's like, well, what does that mean? And when you start really digging deep with somebody, and drive them through their process, they finally were able to answer that. But more, like you said, more is not a goal.
Yeah, more is not a goal. And like, so, and it's not specific. I want to acquire investment real estate. Well, you want to acquire land? You want to acquire apartment buildings? You want to acquire single family rentals? You want to do short-term rentals, long-term rentals? Like, that's not specific, right? And then the measurable, how many of those do you want to acquire? How many, single families, how many apartment buildings, right? So right now, if you said, I want to acquire my real estate, I go, cool, you want to buy 15 apartment buildings at 200 units apiece? And they go, oh, no. Well, I don't know. I don't know what your goal is, right? If you said to me, I want to purchase 5 single family long-term rentals by the end of 2023, that is a smart goal, right? And because that last piece is the time based. They go, I'd love to build a portfolio of about 10 rentals. Okay. In what period of time? By the time you're 80? In the next 5 years? Like, right. What's that goal? Because if you don't have time based, you give yourself excuses for not achieving that goal as soon as maybe you wanted to in your brain, right? So if you go, I want to acquire 5 more rentals, and 5 years from now, you don't have 5 more rentals. And I go, what happened to your goal of achieving 5 rentals? Oh, I'm still working on it. Okay. And I come back in 20 years and I go, hey, did you ever get those 5 rentals? No, I'm still working on it. Right. Like, that's not a good goal. Right. So that's why the SMART goals are so important, and they're not that hard to formulate. Right. It's like, I want to acquire, or I'm going to acquire, 3 more rental properties, long-term rental properties by the end of 2023. Like, and then that goal can be broken down on how are you going to achieve that? Right.
Yeah. You can even get even more detailed, right? And you can break it down by quarter. You can break it down by month, by day. But when you set that goal, like you said, just, what is it that I need to do to achieve that? And that's looking at the goal every single day. Who do I need as leverage? What, funds do I need? All that, what experts do I need to speak with? All that good stuff.
Right.
It's something, again, personally, I believe we should teach this more and, in our younger years. It's such an important tool in our lives to be able to set proper goals, because they work. There's so many examples. I'm included, you're included in that. When you set a SMART goal, cross that off and add, 3 more.
That's right.
They work. They certainly work.
And that's why resolutions fail, by the way, because think about your resolutions right now, right? Like, anybody who's listening, like, think about what your resolution was. Was it this typical, I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to eat healthier, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to live more economically, I'm going to spend less time on social media? None of those are SMART goals, and they're not even close to it, right? Like, spend less time on social media. Right. Okay, so maybe last year you were spending 5 hours a day, so you're going to spend 4 hours and 58 minutes a day now. Like, that would be true. You would be spending less time on social media, but is that really what you meant by, I'm going to spend less time on social media, or I'm going to live more economically? Like, you used to eat out 7 times a week. Now you're going to eat out 6 times a week. Like, that's not what you meant by the goal is the problem. You're tricking yourself into believing that you're, achieving a goal, lose weight, eat healthier. What does that mean? That's not measurable. That's not specific. So that's why I think, resolutions fail. They just and honestly, if I'm being honest, the 8% of the resolutions that are met, because it was a bad goal. It was easy to meet that resolution, like eat healthier. Have you been eating healthier? Yeah, I think I have. It's because it's not specific. It's not measurable, right? So even the people that are reaching those goals, they're not specific enough and they're not measurable. So anyway.
I got to think when you were talking about of what people miss, I have to agree. The measurable part is so powerful. I mean, obviously we can take just the gym or even just eating healthy. It's a big difference when you start tracking what you eat and tracking your exercises, right?
Yep.
Or, if you want to relate it to business, when you start tracking what you spend, a simple profit and loss of what is it that you're really spending every day or every month, and on what. And again, to go back to Workman, we're really big on tracking everything. So, because you can't coach to what you can't track, right? And we've talked about that several times before. But when you look at those details of the incremental things that you do little by little, it tells a story. And so, whoever, the person came up with this, I forget his name, SMART goals it's such a powerful thing. But don't miss any of the steps, right? Because you'll achieve your goals once you do all of them, not just, 2 or 3 of them.
That's right. So the last piece I want to touch on is just kind of achieving your goals. And we've really covered the majority of this in some way, shape, or form so far. But, studies have shown that 61% of goals that are written down are achieved. So that's a significantly better number than, what we've talked about and how many goals are actually achieved. So there's a massive correlation between writing your goals down and actually achieving them. And so, what are some things that you can do to help you achieve your goals? Well, number one, write them down, right? Write those goals down. And I think, some of the other things that we talk about is not just having yourself holding yourself accountable to them, but having other people hold you accountable to those goals. Because in Workman, right? Workman, we say accountability is love, right? Accountability is love, because people that are holding you accountable, whether it's a boss or a colleague or a parent or a friend or a family member or a spouse, we have to remember that accountability it's love. It's just somebody trying to help you get to where you said you want to be. Right? It's not them pushing you to where they want you to be. It's where you want it to be. Now, that's a different level, right? You're going to work for people. You're going to have bosses in your life that don't understand this, and they're going to push you to where they want you to be. Right. But if we can look deeper and we can sit down with somebody, we can sit down with an employee, for example, and say, where do you want to be? Right. Mm-hmm. We can almost always agree that what it takes for them to be where they want to be, they're going to do the things that we want them to do anyway. Right. And I think that's so important to understand, that we may think that we have different views on what you need to accomplish at work or in your life or whatever, but we really don't. Those views are so similar, but we're so busy worrying about what our own needs are that we forget to look at the other person and go, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to do? And once you understand that, you can go, well, what I want you to do is the same. Like, I want you to be, if you're successful in your own right, you're going to add to my life. You're going to add to what I need. Right. And so achieving goals is not only beneficial for the person setting those goals, but it's beneficial for the people around you. And that's why that external accountability can be so powerful too. So share your goals with your friends, share your goal with your family members, that kind of stuff. So like Yamel already said, create a vision board, put it on your desktop, put it in your phone every day. Like put it
from the rooftops, I mean,
totally.
Again, it's, when I agree with you wholeheartedly, because it's, you keep it to yourself. Again, when you're sitting, maybe even your spouse, I'll use that as an example, right? You tell your spouse, hey, your spouse loves you. Your spouse cares about you. I know particularly my husband he's all helping me with, my fitness goals right now. It's something he does very easily, but it's nice to have that someone in your corner to help you. Like you said, accountability is love, because they do care about you and they want to see what's best for you. But there is a study, right? Shout it from the rooftops, tell everybody, you're more likely to achieve it once you do.
Absolutely. So there's one thing that you can take from today. I would love you to go home and just write down one goal and make it a SMART goal. And then take that goal and whatever it is, maybe it's to go on vacation, maybe to save enough money to go on vacation. You want to go to Costa Rica at the end of the year this year, whatever it is. Go find a picture of beautiful Costa Rica and put it on your computer desktop, put it on your phone, make it your backdrop so you see it every single day.
Yes.
You don't even need the written words. You don't need the written words. Just put a picture of Costa Rica on your phone. Put a picture of the car that you want. Put a picture of the house that you want to buy. Put it somewhere where you see it every single day. And watch what will happen. Just watch the way it changes.
Go test drive that car. I would add that a little bit more. Go test drive that car, right?
Go test drive the car.
Feel yourself in that automobile. It's attainable, right? It's right there in your fingertips. So great suggestions, Nick. I have to say, I'm jazzed up to go set some more goals right now.
Awesome. I love it. Well, we'll close out with a quick quote from Brian Tracy because, we talked a lot about Brian Tracy today, but a goal without a plan is only a dream. And that is so true. Right. And I'm sure there's a reciprocal of that somewhere, that a plan without a goal is something. Right. But it's leading you nowhere, essentially. So, if you don't have a goal in mind, why are you doing what you're doing? Stop doing it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so think about that, too. Think about the reciprocal of that if you got a plan, but it doesn't lead to anywhere, maybe you need to replan. Right. So anyway, a goal without a plan is only a dream. And again, I'll just recap that a lot of the data that I got from goalscalling.com, go check it out. It's a great blog. There's a link in the description. But Yamel, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show with me today. I really appreciate it. Absolutely. You're obviously you're
somebody out there that's some really cool goals.
What's that? Say that again.
I was just saying, I hope we help someone out there set some amazing goals for 2023 and on.
I hope so too. I mean, obviously, your dedication to your own goals, as well as, helping your coaching clients achieve their goals. I mean, that's incredibly evident. So again, just not to keep, tooting Yamel's horn, but she is a top producing real estate agent. She coaches. How many coaching clients do you have, Yamel?
14 coaching clients. Yes.
Okay. So she is coaching top producing real estate agents throughout the nation, not just in her market, but every market throughout the United States. She's a top producer herself, one of the top producers. So anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being on the Live Big podcast. And just please remember, join me next week. We have a great episode next week. We will be going over step by step how to acquire your first rental property. So we will have a guest on that episode as well. Somebody who just went through acquiring their first rental property. So you get to see it from the eyes of somebody who just experienced it. So that's it for. Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So anyway, that's it for today. Go set some goals, right? And remember, live big.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Live Big podcast. For even more real estate and investment resources, go to blackyetigroup.com/resources and download Nick's complete guide to running your own rental properties. Tune back in next week for another episode, and until then, live big.
Live Big does not provide investment, legal, or tax advice, and nothing herein should be construed as being financial, legal, tax, or other advice. Live Big does not represent that any securities or services discussed are suitable for any investor. No investment or other decision should be made solely based on the contents or information found on the website or podcast. When making a decision about your investments, you should seek the advice of a professional financial advisor or qualified expert.